So what's the best HeadRush unit for your needs? In today's video, we're going to do a shootout between the Flex Prime, the Core, and the Flagship Prime to see which is the best all-in-one studio and live solution. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'm going to give a summary out of the three units at the end and give my opinion on which one is my favorite out of the three. All right, so before we jump in and get started today, it's important to establish a few things for the basis of this video. To my surprise, all three units have the exact same processing power and capability, which is super cool. From the Flagship Prime all the way down to the compact Flex Prime, you can have 14 blocks, which are the cabs, IRs, amps, effects, clones, super clone combinations in any order you desire. So that's super cool. The main thing to point out is this video is going to be looking at the functionality, particularly in a live setting between all three units. And it's important to point out that the HeadRush Flex Prime is the only unit without the microphone input. So obviously on that unit, you don't have access to the full suite of vocal effects, including the Antares auto-tune, which is featured on the Core and the Prime. So let's jump in and check out the Flex Prime to get started. All right, so jumping in on the Flex Prime, we've got 3 foot switches on the unit in front of us. We have our expression pedal to the right. We have our main out here and then our control knob here. So this is used if we want to go in and edit effects where we go and click parameters, for example, and move them around like that. You also have the ability to use the touchscreen to work around that. You can easily drag and drop effects around like that, so on and so forth. Now, I'm not going to lie, the touchscreen on this is tiny. It's very, very small, and I found in my experience a little bit difficult, particularly in a studio setting. You have to make multiple tweaks, particularly if the unit's on the floor. If the unit's up on the desk, that's fine. You can navigate your way around it. However, HeadRush have come up with a web editor which you can connect via Wi-Fi, either a tablet or your laptop, to access the software editor on a more larger user-friendly interface. All right, so jumping back in, let's just check the ins and outs that we've got on the unit. We have our guitar in and out. We've got a standard effects send and return. We have an expression pedal that we can plug in. We've got a stereo out, if I haven't mentioned that before, and then we have auxiliary, headphone out, and then a 1/8 MIDI input, as well as a USB port to connect it up. So let's jump in now and check out how functional the Flex Prime could be in a live setting by exploring the modes in the unit. So if we come down, we hold down the first foot switch, which brings up our modes. We have stomp mode, rig mode, and hybrid mode, which is a combination of those modes. But first we're going to explore stomp mode. Okay, so what we have in stomp mode, this current unit is currently set up with scenes. Okay, so scenes is where you can assign multiple changes in the signal blocks to a single foot switch. So you can go in and program that in your foot switch settings to turn as many effects off and on with a single touch of a button, which is very, very functional, particularly with a more compact unit like this. I have done a tutorial where you can set your Flex Prime up to access 6 scenes from the 3 buttons. So effectively what that is assigning 2 scenes to each button. So you can literally switch between the 2 on a single button. But let's go down. I'm going to show you one more feature. So say hypothetically you had your 6 scene method where you could A and B between your 6 different sounds. If you want to change rigs, you've got this cool function. If you hit the 2 buttons together like that, you can change rigs up and down. So that's going up. You hit these 2 together, going down. So you might, potentially there's a little bit of room for error there if you don't time pushing both foot switches together, but I'm sure with a bit of practice, you can navigate your way around that in a live setting. The other cool thing with the Flex Prime that you don't get on the Core is you get the A/B function on the expression pedal. So what that is, we've got a volume pedal set up here and a wah pedal here. So what's really cool about this is if I go in and just push that like that, you can see you can have the wah's been activated, and if I go and hit the toe like that, it goes back to the volume pedal. So having 2 parameters that you can access via the 1 foot switch is a super cool design function. I really like that as part of the Flex Prime. All right, jumping back in, we're going to check out the other methods. So we've got rig mode. Okay, so what this does is it just assigns your rigs per foot switch. So you can have your rigs designed next or laid out next to one another. And again, you can either click on the rig, and if you want to scroll up to the next bank of rigs, hit the 2 together, and that's going to 4, 5, 6. You can skip to rigs there. use that around. And if you want to scroll back down to the banks, the same idea where you hit the 2 foot switches together, jumping back in, and we're going to check out hybrid mode here. So with hybrid mode, you've got the ability to assign one scene here or 1 foot switch setting here, and then you can switch between your rigs here. So that just allows you to be able to navigate through your rigs and also have an A/B function on your sounds there. All right, let's jump in and check out the HeadRush Core now. So you can see in front of us here with the HeadRush Core, we've got the larger unit with 5 foot switches in front of us, our control knob to the right, main out and headphone out controls on the front panel here. It also features the larger touchscreen, which make things a lot more intuitive in terms of building rigs on the fly, moving things around, and also if we want to go in and alter our settings using the touchscreen, this is far more comfortable than the Flex Prime. All right, so let's chat about the ins and outs on the HeadRush Core. We've got the microphone in, we have the guitar in, we have the external amp control with our expression pedal, and our toe switch as well. We also have an effects send and return. We have stereo out with 1/4 inch. We have XLR out stereo as well. We have auxiliary out and a standard MIDI in and out on the unit, as well as USB A and B connections for the unit. And one thing worth mentioning with the HeadRush Core with the microphone in is this unit has the ability to profile and clone amplifiers and distortion pedals directly to the unit. The Flex Prime still has the ability to play those clones once they're recorded and put in the cloud or transferred onto the unit, but the ability to take those profiles and clones with the unit directly is a super cool function. All right, so let's explore the live functionality available with the unit. We're going to start by holding the mode button, which is a 2nd foot switch. This brings up our options and we're going to explore stomp mode. Now, stomp mode on the Core acts exactly like it does on the Flex Prime, but obviously with the expanded capability we have with these buttons, we're going to explore those options here. So you can set these 5 options up as scenes. And again, using the method I spoke about before, you could technically set up an A/B on each foot switch to switch between that. So that's up to 10 different scenes from the foot switches in front of you. However, there's a really cool function. If we jump on in and hold this first foot switch down, which is bank A/B, it brings up another 5 options which you can switch to. So what you could potentially do, if you wanted to get flexibility out of the unit, is you could have your scenes set up on one row, and you could make that between 5 and 10 scenes if you want. And then if you want the unit to act more like a traditional pedal board, you could assign on the other side of the B individual pedals to switch off and on. So that way you're getting the benefit of multiple switches on one side for your live performance, and then on the other side, the more traditional use of treating it like a pedal board. Now, the other cool function, if we jump on in here, is the 2 and 3 buttons and the 3 and 4 buttons. If you push those, that allows you to change rigs and banks moving between the 2. So you can maintain switching of your rigs as well as scenes on one side, stomp boxes on the other. So a heap of functionality that's been really well thought out and designed into this unit. Let's jump in. We're going to check out the next one. Hold down mode. We're going to bring up rig mode. Again, same idea as the Flex Prime, we just have a larger capability with the extra foot switches. So again, we can switch between our rigs, like you can see there, and then if you want to navigate to a different bank of rigs, you just double hit those and navigate your way through that. Hold down mode again, we go to 3 rig mode. Again, as you can see here, we have our 3 rigs in the middle, and then the outer buttons act as navigational buttons with the banks. So you can switch between your banks and grab your rigs that you want to access there. Jump back in on mode. We have our hybrid mode here. Okay, so that allows us to access our scenes in the middle. Okay, and then you can switch between your rigs in there as well. Let me just check if you can access. That's really cool. So you can actually switch between 3 different sides of scenes there. So you could have 6 scenes set up on these 3 pedals here. Hold down your A and B, and that brings up your other options you could access there. Now, this is really cool in a live setting if you don't, or if you want to avoid having to hold down 2 buttons at once, or if you have to make a fast switch and hold down 2 switches at once. There is a small margin of error, which you might necessarily want to take on in a live performance, particularly if it's a key switch that you need to make at that time. And then obviously the last switch, if we jump on in, is set list. Okay, so set lists are folders in which you can pre-arrange your rigs into, depending on what live show you're doing or what genre you might be playing. You can organize those, navigate between those, and easily access those there. All right, so jumping in to check out the HeadRush Prime now. So if we look at the front panel, you can see we've got the larger layout here for the 12-foot switches on the unit here. We have our main out, our headphone out, our auxiliary level out, as well as our control knob and our touchscreen here, which is the same size as the core, which you can navigate all your features there. The other cool feature we have is these 3 control knobs here, which really allow you to access and get that feel of treating a pedal board. So if I come in and just grab a pedal, for example, you can see all the effects parameters come up there, and you can really edit those in a really hands-on manner, which is awesome. The other cool thing is this expression pedal here, similar to the Flex Prime, where you've got this switch, you can A, B between different sounds. As I mentioned, I absolutely love that function, and the expression pedal just feels absolute quality under the feet, and to use, you just get tons and tons of hours of use out of that. In terms of the ins and outs, we've got the exact same ins and outs that we have on the core. So quickly, that's mic in, mic gain, guitar in, amp control out. We've got a guitar send and return. We have our expression pedal and toe controls. We have stereo 1/4 inch out, stereo XLR out, MIDI in and out, and then USB A and B, as well as our headphone and auxiliary inputs and outputs there. Okay, let's jump in and check out the live capability of the Prime now. So coming in, we hold down our mode button here, and then we've got the standard options, which we find on the other units, but obviously with extra switching and being the flagship unit, we've got a few extra features which are really cool. We're gonna start with stomp mode. Okay, so again, we've got our foot switches here, which we can either set up as scenes or stomp boxes or effect controls off and on. So again, because we've got 8 pedals laid out there, we could potentially have, using scenes, 16 sounds that you can set up out of your rig. So that's a huge amount of functionality and access to your rigs with the unit. The other thing you've got on the far left is you can easily just switch between the rigs. So there's no having to hold down 2 buttons at once. You can easily just switch between and have your scenes or your stomp boxes there. So really cool maximal control and functionality there. Let's go back and we're going to explore rig mode now. Now, this is really, really cool, and I love this feature. So what we've got is we've got our banks. We can scroll up and down. Again, no having to hold down 2 switches at once to get between your banks with your rigs on the unit here to be able to access. Now, what's really cool about this is you can go and hit a rig, and when you hit and hold, it converts the rig into stomp mode. So what that does is that brings up access to all of your individual pedals, as well as having the ability to switch scenes with the unit there. So if we come back, you just hit exit to go back to rig mode, and then literally you can navigate your rigs, and then if you want to go into stomp mode, hit and hold, it takes you in to that. So with the touch of just a couple of buttons, there's a huge amount of access to your rigs as well as control. So that's a super cool feature, particularly if you're in a creative setting, which I have really found that useful. If you're in a rehearsal or a studio session or a jam, or even if you're jamming out in your own home studio and you want to experiment and find some new sounds for a track, it's really, really fast and intuitive to just jump around your rigs, switch between rig mode to scene mode or stomp mode, and then access all these different combinations. So getting out of that, we're going to jump back in and we're going to explore hybrid mode now. So what this is, along the bottom, you've got either your individual effects off and on, or your scenes that you can set up there. And then across the top, you've got rigs. So again, you can either turn them off and on, and the other cool function, hit and hold, takes you into full stomp mode there. Exit to go back to hybrid mode. That's a really cool feature. Let's go back here. And then set list mode. Okay. What we have here in front of us is we've got our rigs there, which you can switch between with the touch of a button really easily. You have your banks of rigs. okay, which is really, really cool. So you can, got 1, 2, 3, 4, you can easily scroll through those. So 3, 4, 5, 6. If you need to access your rigs really quickly, again, you've got that cool function. If you hit and hold, it takes you into stomp mode. You can access all of the control, exit to go back. Super cool. The other thing I love about this is you've got rig. So it's currently on rig 4. You can literally just have everything set up in your order, where you can just literally, with one touch of a button, you can just scroll through your entire set just like that, which is a super cool feature to have in a live setting. The other thing too is if I had gone ahead and had more songs in here with groups of rigs, you could easily switch between your songs a lot easier there. So what this allows you to do is really navigate all of the features. So by all the pre-planning you've done, all in one set of pedals to be able to jump in there. Okay, so it's time to sum it up to see which of the 3 units is the best one for you, and ultimately which one was my favorite. I think this is an equation of functionality in a live setting and portability between the 3 units. So let's start off by looking at the HeadRush Flex Prime. For me, whilst this was not my favorite out of the 3 units, I definitely have a soft spot for it, purely because of how powerful and compact the unit is. I did use it in live, simple live settings with minimal amount of switching, and I have used it in studio sessions. The only drawback I found with the unit as a standalone in a studio setting was it was a little bit fiddly, particularly on the floor when you had to edit. However, HeadRush, with the workaround of having the web editor with your tablet or your laptop connected to it, you can easily work around that problem, and you could easily get by in the studio with those extra devices connected to the unit. In terms of a live unit though, if you've got basic switching, either using the 16 method, or you're just looking for something which is an all-in-one unit, you can throw in your backpack as an all-in-one flight rig and carry on, or having something that's part of a larger compact pedal board, say the Flex Prime and 2 extra pedals on a board, absolutely it could do the job there. But as long as you're willing to do the preparation work in laying your rigs and having minimal switching flexibility in a live setting, the Flex Prime could absolutely do a job. Now jumping onto the HeadRush Core, and for me, this unit out of the 3 fits in the Goldilocks zone, where it's compact enough to be really portable, fit in your backpack, be a flight rig, but also there's enough functionality with the foot switches there to be able to cover you for the bulk of live situations. The larger touchscreen in a studio setting was far easier to navigate than the Flex Prime, and also having the mic input where you can clone and profile your amps and distortion pedals is a super cool function. I think this unit is probably going to be the one where the overwhelming majority of people, it's going to tick all the boxes in terms of something which is compact and has that switching capability in a live setting. Now, let's jump on to the Prime. So for me, this unit is ultimate control, ultimate flexibility in terms of being able to access all of your different sounds and control them in the fastest and shortest possible time. For someone who prefers working with their hands to pull sounds, like in the use of a traditional pedal board as opposed to software editors, I much prefer the Prime. And for me, the strength of the Prime is if you're in a creative setting or in a jamming setting, this could be something if you're getting ready to rehearse for some shows or going on a tour, where you want to be able to pull a bunch of different sounds and experiment with different sounds really fast, really quickly. The Prime it excels at that. As well, I have a soft spot for that expression pedal. I love the function of being able to A/B between multiple different effects, as well as the quality of it is exceptional. And then just like the Core, you've got the ability to clone and profile your amps directly to the unit. All right, now we're at that point in the video where I share which one of these 3 units is my favorite. And this might be a bit of a surprise or a cop-out to some people, but for me, I can't split the Core and the Prime. Now, I love both of these units for different reasons. Let's start with the Core. I think this is potentially the ultimate compact unit with how functional it is. You can easily throw it in your backpack. The touchscreen is so easy to build and make changes to settings on the fly, and there's enough switching in a live setting, particularly if you're doing the same show in series where you can set everything up and just have really seamless switching in between the two. As well, you can arrange it where you get a large amount of flexibility in terms of being able to switch between scenes and stomps, and also the cloning feature with the microphone input is super cool. However, the Prime, why I love this, firstly, the expression pedal is out of this world. I absolutely love the AB function, and the quality and feel of it underfoot is really, really nice. The other thing is just the huge amount of access to rigs and control that you can get with those rigs on the fly. For me, sits really, really well in creative settings, whether that's if you're trying to experiment with different sounds in a recording setting, or you might be jamming or rehearsing and just want to get an idea for a different sound or a different part in different sections of the song. The Prime is the fastest to navigate, not to mention edit, with the touchscreen interface and the extra control knobs. So if you have any questions out there about any of the units in the video, drop those in the comments. I'm happy to get back to you people there. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel and check out some of my online courses and lessons, follow the links below. As well as if you already are an owner of this unit or any of these 3 units, you can check the tutorials out in the description that I've done for the videos there. My name is Ryan Wyatt. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm going to catch up with you all in the next video.